political leaders are failing to end the country's housing emergency, according to charities working with homeless people. New Scottish Government figures show the number of affordable homes completed last year fell by 25%. Housing associations are calling for all parties to make social house building an election priority. We don't have the manifestos yet, but each of the leaders have given us some idea of what they might do to solve the crisis.
We work with organisations like Homes for Scotland and other interested parties to make sure we've got a supportive planning climate, working with local authorities to make sure that we remove any obstacles to the developments around about housing. And of course we've got a track record of doing exactly that by working to ensure that sites that may be stalled are able to be activated and that we can see developments taking their course. And that's what's important about the type of activist interventionist government that I want to lead.
We'll look at the whole housing issue in the round. Planning, stamp duty, green net zero targets, right to buy, all of that, because what we need to do is take a different approach to the one that the SNP government has taken. They promised to build 100,000 homes and they've barely built 30, 40,000 of them. It's a complete mess.
We're in the midst of a housing emergency and the reality is the SNP have lost control. On their watch we have 10,000 children homeless as we speak in our country, which is completely and utterly unacceptable. And over the course of the last few years, rough sleeping has increased by 66%. And it demonstrates why we need a different approach here in Scotland. And we have set out ambitious plans to build 125,000 new homes, to reform our planning system so we can get faster consents.
We need to see those truly affordable homes built and good quality affordable homes in the places that we need it. We've declared a housing emergency as a country, and those house building stats are certainly concerning.
There is no confidence in Scotland for house building right now, and that's largely a creature of SNP policy, SNP and Green policy, which has made us an unsafe place to do business. We urgently need housing supply so that people who can't get a rental agreement or can't get a house of their own can do so.
Reform were not out on the campaign trail today, but they've already published their manifesto and it promises 75,000 new homes over the next 5 years, and they want to give priority to local people for social housing. Now, joining us to discuss what they want to see from parties to tackle the housing emergency is Alison Watson from the charity Shelter Scotland and the Chief Executive of industry body Homes for Scotland, Jane Wood. Thank you both for joining us this evening. Alison, we keep talking about the housing emergency. How bad is it?
I think what we've seen is a worsening picture. It's a deepening housing emergency that's damaging more and more lives across Scotland. In the course of the Parliament that's just now winding up, rough sleeping has doubled. We've now reached a stage where every 15 minutes another household in Scotland becomes homeless. And one of the things of particular concern to Shelter Scotland is that we've now got a record number of children, 10,480 children who are homeless. And every single day another 39 children join their ranks. And the number of families in temporary accommodations continue to rise. It's risen by 26% over the course of this Parliament. So things are moving in the wrong direction. We're seeing people trapped in the housing system for longer and longer periods of time because quite simply there aren't enough social homes for people to move into.
Jane, as Alison says, things are moving in the wrong direction. How much of a shortfall is there in social housing?
Well, we talk about housing for all, so we talk about all tenure housing. I mean, the housing statistics released today show another 13% drop in all tenure housing. These statistics are clearly a concern. We should be building 25,000 houses a minimum a year, and we haven't done that for a long time, certainly not since I've been in post. So the shortfall is a cumulative one, and it's just increasing. We had hoped to see a slight difference in these statistics, but clearly the trajectory is going the wrong way for Scotland and the 1 in 4 households in Scotland that have a housing need.
So, Alison, well, what are the barriers? Why are these homes not being built?
What we've called for in our manifesto at Shelter Scotland is two key things: new money and a new approach. I think what we're tending to get from politicians is a repeated articulation of what the barriers are. What we need to move them into is a costed delivery plan. Let's understand how we're going to tackle those barriers. Let's understand how we're going to get the land, the infrastructure, the planning system right, the finance right, so we can move forward at the scale and pace that's needed to get the homes built. Delivery of affordable homes to date has been too slow, too little, too late for those thousands of children who are trapped in temporary accommodation. We have to go faster. We have to really pick up the pace here and make sure that we build the right homes in the right places to really make a difference to people's lives.
Jane, is there just too much bureaucracy, too much red tape?
I think it's almost simpler than that, actually, Rowan. I mean, we've been saying for a long time to government the same message, and our research that came out last week said the same thing. Scotland simply does not have sufficient deliverable land to maintain a housing supply over the next 10 years. New sites in future plans will not deliver homes until 2033 or later. And the housing emergency is just going to worsen without urgent policy intervention. So whilst we talk about systemic failure or systemic change needed, given where we are with housing supply and these statistics, we need, intervention. And there is a solution. The NPF4 that came in 2023 did not enable delivery. It constrained it. And I think to unblock the problem in a planning process that isn't functioning as it should, we need to bring in short-term solution like a presumption in favour of sustainable development or a mechanism that can bring land forward for the houses that Scotland's population needs. And we've got data that evidences this. But it's critical now, and it needs bold intervention by government and by the new government that comes in next year.
The shelter's calling for nearly 16,000 new homes to be built every year. Is that realistic? Is that doable, Alison?
I think in terms of looking at the cost of that, it's also important to look at the cost of not doing that. Homelessness costs the public purse huge amounts of money, as well as the terrible harm that it does to people caught up in the housing system. It has cost to our NHS, to social work, to other public services. And we also know that Scotland's local authorities are spending millions of pounds on incredibly expensive temporary accommodation. So I think it's looking at the costs in the round, and I very much agree with Jane's point. It's about looking at housing as a system. And the system at the moment is frankly broken. And I think it's about making sure that local authorities, social housing developers have the funds and have the support to give them the confidence and the capability to go ahead and build the homes that will make a difference to people trapped in the system at the moment.
Do you think 16,000 homes is doable? What would make it doable, Jane?
Well, as I've said, we need intervention in the planning system because everything begins at planning. And if you're failing at that early onset, it takes 4 years from commencing a planning process for a house to actually to be built. So that's what I'm saying, that we're building the problem up year on year. I mean, I think there are other areas in terms of understanding how we build houses, the interdependencies between social and private housing, the interdependencies between private developers and social landlords. We need everybody. We need the directorates to be working well together. But I think at this point in time, we welcome the announcement of a housing agency in Scotland, but we need a root and branch review. And where does that departmental responsibility for housing sit? And what power is it going to have? Or is it just going to be a cut and paste of something we've already got? So what's the solution we're trying to find? And I think we've asked in part of our manifesto, we welcomed leadership in housing. So we want the cabinet housing to be retained in a cabinet portfolio. I think that's really important. Okay. But we need that 25,000 all 10-year target being able to be delivered and recognising the interconnected nature of private and affordable housing. I think that's really important. And we need the public to understand housing too, and all of the parties to prioritise it.
Yes, just in a sentence or two, Alison, is it seen as enough of a priority?
I don't think it is. And talking again about the 15,693 social homes that Scotland needs per year for the next 5 years, Not building those homes means that political parties who don't commit to that are accepting rising homelessness. And I think that cannot be acceptable in Scotland in 2026, that we have record numbers of kids in temporary accommodation without a plan to get them out.
We'll have to leave it there. Alison and Jane, thank you both very much indeed for joining us this evening.